Okay. This week's guest has been a dream guest of mine for the past 204 episodes, and it is a dream to say that the day has finally come. Our guest this week for the 205th episode of Take a Bow is one of my favorite directors in the business. You may be familiar with his work in Beautiful, the Carole King Musical, which his work earned the show a Tony nomination for Best Musical. And now, currently, he is doing double duty as the director of The Great Gatsby over at the Broadway Theater and Bye Bye Birdie over in DC at the Kennedy Center. So it is my honor to welcome to Take a Bow for episode 205, none other than Broadway's Marc Bruni. Hi, Marc Bruni. How are you?
Hi, Eli. It's
Oh
great
my
to see
goodness.
you. I can't believe you've made 204 of these.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is 205, and what a perfect guest for 205, huh? I've had some.
That's a great number. I like it.
Yeah, perfect. I had Matthew Morrison on for 200, so like I like the big numbers to be like exciting guests, and of course,
Good. I'm glad I'm a
you're
5 multiple.
you
They seem really important. The multiples of 5.
to me they're most important if you ask me. Marc Bruni, like this is it. This is happening. I feel like
It's
I wanted to
happening. It's
get you
happening.
on forever.
Well,
Obviously,
this is a real honor to be here, and I'm so happy to be able to do this. And getting to meet you on Trevor was incredible, and I will always remember the day that you walked in the room and auditioned for Trevor, and we all looked at each other and went, oh, "Okay, there he is."
crazy. I don't know. So, okay, I was saving this for a little bit down in the episode, but we'll just hop into it because I've been told multiple times that like when I walked into the room for Trevor, people were like, no, like this is not gonna work. But I heard that you were the one that was advocating for it to work. What did you see? Like what I don't know, what was that process like in casting Trevor?
Well, I think anytime in any audition, there's going to be difference of opinion, and finding consensus is one of the big parts of directing, is getting to have your whole creative team get on board. And casting is so critical because I think it's like 80% of directing, and if you don't get it right, then there's no amount of directing that's going to get you to a performance out of an actor that you fundamentally miscast. But you know. But you are such an intuitive actor, in the multiple Broadway shows that you had done, even at that age,
Yeah.
it was clear that there was a level of acting that was required by the show, as well as the singing demands, as well as the dancing demands, and
Right.
you had all of the things. But that show is so specific to a very, very narrow, as you well know, like narrow moment in time where
Yeah.
your voice hasn't changed, and also you are old enough that this sophisticated story can land in a way that has some layers and has some ability to deliver something behind the eyes, which is not something that everybody who's a young actor has. So, but you did.
Right.
And
Well,
do.
it's interesting because I don't know. Maybe this is me in my head reflecting. Maybe this is how everyone felt. It felt like I didn't really fully get Trevor until like a week before we started performances. Like with the way he stood and like the way he walks. Like I learned
Yeah.
so much about acting that like I never even thought about even like doing a Broadway show, all the little isms
Sure.
and like the Josh Prince of it all as it all clicked.
Yes. 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 Well, you need Josh Prince on any project, and he's a wonderful movement curator, and also energy cheerleader for the room.
Yeah. It seemed like it literally did not click until like all you needed to say was look, watch him. Just watch how he stands, watch
Yeah.
how he walks,
Yeah.
and like repeat it. Like, and then it was like,
Hmm.
oh my
Well,
God, like
I think
I get it.
there's an element of outside in and inside, but I think that the thing that that made your performance wonderful was that inherently had an ability to make it feel truthful, and to make those words feel truthful, and to kind of mean what you say. And that seems like a simple thing to just say, mean what you say, but there's only a certain number of people that have that gift to be able to truly be captivating at doing that, and be
Right.
just to simply talk and listen, which seems like it's like the 101, but at the same time, it's an important thing, and it's something that not everybody knows how to do really well.
Right. Well, I appreciate it. And honest to God, like I said, like Trevor was the first time. Well, Trevor was also the first time that I ever originated something, like I was always
Yeah.
able to like
Well,
watch
and the material was changing too, so it was a moving target in that way. I mean, we had new pages, as you remember, coming in,
yeah,
like on a daily basis, and to be able to process all of that you needed to do just to get the show up, but then also to be ready to be facile about dealing with changes and dealing with choreography, and
yeah.
it was an intense time in Glencoe.
It was the greatest time of my life, honest to God. It was by far the most fun I had with a bunch of kids, not just like two
Yeah,
or three, It
yeah.
was great. And then, but like they weren't
That
like
was
kids, like it felt like we
Well,
were
that was
all
the
like,
thing that's the thing that's really cool about that show, is that normally, if you're and you know this far better than I, but as a young child actor, you're probably one of like a couple in a company that is primarily about adults, and that
mm,
to have the adults in Trevor are kind of the supporting characters, and so you are shouldering the burden of actually leading the show, which is something that is
for
very
sure.
unusual, unless you're doing a show in a school setting or in an educational setting. But to do it in a professional setting um, is very unusual, and but I think all really kind of empowering for the whole cast to be able to
Absolutely.
have. Did you feel a sense of responsibility about that? I mean, did that or you were just like, it's another show, and it's like at that point,
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
just like,
like,
I'm gonna do my thing.
exactly. Like, I don't want to like toot my own horn or anything, but like, I always feel like I don't know. I kind of like to take the charge in like whatever I
Yeah,
do, like
sure.
and kind of be like a good
Absolutely.
example.
205 episodes of a podcast.
Whoa, well, there you
You just
go.
keep going.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of that like attributes to like my siblings and like having someone to look up to, and like one day, like hopefully, like
Yeah.
I've always wanted a younger sibling, and so one day, hopefully, I can like be the guy like that people look up to. Like I don't know if it
Yeah.
comes from that.
Sure.
And
Sure.
Neverland was the same thing. Like Peter was on the stage the whole show, and sure there was Matthew Morrison in the
Sure.
show and Laura Michelle Kelly who was like really leading the way. But like out of the kids, like I always felt like I wanted to, be the example. And so, like, jumping into
Yeah.
Trevor, it didn't really feel like any sort of different or anything like that. There were times that, with the new material and all of that, like, there were times of, whoa, like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm stressing out, but like, it was great. It
Well, you
ended
did a
up,
good job of hiding that. I don't remember there being too many moments of you freaking out.
it ended very quickly when I started to allow myself to do other versions, if that's just what was coming out that day. If I was doing the old version,
Yeah.
we'll get another crack at it
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh my God. I remember there were so many like lyric changes that were
Yeah.
thrown at you at the last minute. And it was like, oh, that was yesterday's lyrics, but that's fine. All you can do is,
Sorry, guys.
sorry, guys.
I know. And I think it took like messing up to then start to like be like, okay, that wasn't the end of the world and no one's yelling at me. So it's okay. But just try to do it right, try your best.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
So,
Well, you
but
were
again, that stems from you guys, the you guys at the top
well.
and you
I
guys.
think the fact that you were able to take that on, and that you were that we felt like, even if it wasn't going to immediately happen in one day, that you were able. We wouldn't have made changes at all if we didn't think that you could sort of handle
Sure.
it in a long-term way. So we
Absolutely.
were very lucky to have you do it.
Yeah, well, I want to kind of get into all of that and just directing and the behind the scenes to it in general, because,
Sure.
obviously, Take a Bow and everything. Like, you see who we interview. We have a lot of, performers on, and we've had
Yeah.
a couple directors before, Diane Paulus and Sammy Canold. And now we have you.
Wonderful,
So
wonderful, fancy people.
hey, they're the best. I always say, like, I owe my career to Diane and Marc Bruni, so this is like my treat to have you on. So
Oh,
in going back to just creating a show, and we were talking about Trevor. So
yeah,
if you want to use that as an example, or if you want to talk about
yeah,
Gatsby or even Bye Bye Birdie, like,
sure.
how do you find that balance of just creating something and collaborating with so many cooks in the kitchen,
Yeah,
whether it's the
yeah,
writer, whether it's the producer
sure.
financially, whether it's the performer, how much of that is a balancing act and kind of being like, you take the reins here, and how do you kind of choose to divide that, I guess?
Yeah, well, that's one of the great joys of doing it is being able to collaborate with people who are smarter than you and who have better ideas than you. And as a director, you don't have to be you just have to be the arbiter of what's going to end up on the stage, but you don't have to be the one to have all the ideas. And so
Mhm.
I think it's wonderful to be able to have collaborators of designers and writers um, and to create a space that allows them to have a voice and
Mhm.
to try. And then your job is just to get everybody telling the same story and
Right.
understanding what it is that you're going for. And then within that, um, there's always parameters that can provide for opportunities for creativity. And I find that I'm not very good at doing things when there's a big blank canvas like that. The sort of um, Sunday in the Park of it all of the white page or canvas is very daunting. But
Oh,
once there's a couple of once you put a couple of um, parameters on the experience, then it's easier to be creative within the parameters of a creative space that has been sort of designed in a slightly more like once you have a general idea for a set design, for example, then it's easier to have ideas about transitions or ideas about how something might work within the general sort of scope of what it's going to be, rather than this with Gatsby, for example, when they wrote it and I read the script and there's two cars and a pool and and sort of figuring out those big things of like, okay, oh my God, how are we going to do that? And then,
yeah.
and then, then it becomes like a game of successive approximations of, okay, so now we've got an idea for how we're going to deal with these big things. And then you can kind of whittle it down into then finding out how you're going to solve the more, the easier things are always like the more emotional things, because those are things that are, you can kind of, you and the writer can negotiate and figure out. And I when I was a kid, I was an actor up until college, and I do, part of what I like about directing is that I do feel like in the pre-production process that I get to play all the parts, um, and
Yes.
uh, and and uh, and kind of think about the story through the lens of the various different characters and how they are feeling, and then imagining what they might be thinking or what they might be feeling, and how that affects the other the storytelling of that moment. And that's something I certainly got from Jerry Zaks. I got started my career assisting Jerry, and Jerry very
Yes.
much started as an actor. And I remember we had a lot of time spent in his office where he would read the script, all of the parts out loud at his desk, and just hearing the rhythm of the way that he thought about it and the way that he would has sort of created a process for me about how I read a script. And sometimes I will read it out loud to myself, like a crazy
Yeah.
person. In my, but it's helpful to just hear the music of it and the rhythm of it, and the
Mm.
to help to, if I can sort of act my way through it, then sometimes that's helpful to to getting a sense, not that I'm going to necessarily want the actors to do it that way, but that I at least have a sense of like what the music of the piece is. Because I think, especially with musicals and books of musicals, they often need to have a musicality about the way that they behave in the course of the course of the music.
Oh my God!
So
there's a million avenues that I could branch
know,
off.
I know that I feel like that was a free
this is
association of a lot
fantastic.
of things.
No, I loved everything that was said. Okay, so first, I guess we'll just start with like kind of where it ended in terms of like, reading a script, is that kind of how you decide whether or not you want to attach yourself to it? Are you just handed a bunch of scripts? Do you get
I mean,
music
it
with
really
it when
depends.
you get those?
I mean, it depends. It depends. I mean, in the case of Gatsby or Trevor, I came in pretty early in both of those processes. So Trevor, they had 3 songs and a treatment,
Okay.
and Gatsby, they had they had a few more songs, and they had a first draft of a first act, I think. But it's really you're making a bet on the future something, because it's more about like the collaboration with the artists than in those cases of, I knew that Julianne and Dan were I knew some of their other work. I was familiar with their musical Southern Comfort that they had done down at the Public, and so and in meeting them, and we sort of clicked as artistically, and so it at the beginning of a process like that, that it's going to be many years because musicals take forever. So you're kind of choosing. It's like almost like a chosen family situation, because that you're going to be having years of meetings and emails and dinners and discussions about this process, and so it's as much about the like curating the experience of that as it is about the actual material. I mean, the material itself obviously needs to be something that you respond to, but the material is also very changeable, and so with the right people, if you have great writers that you respect and that you feel like you have a shorthand with, and that you will listen to what you have to say, and that it's going to be a fruitful and an interesting process to be in the room with them. That's kind of what you're signing up for with a long-term, like, new musical project. And
Right.
in the case of Gatsby, Jason Howland, the composer, was kind enough to bring me on early and want me to be a part of it. We'd worked together. He was the music supervisor at Beautiful, and he had already brought on Kate and Nathan, and the 3 of us had done this pandemic project of working on this Killer Party web musical. But we'd actually never even been in the room together, because it was all over Zoom over the pandemic.
Wow.
So our first meeting on Gatsby was really the first time that we'd really all been together in a room. And so I mean, sometimes it's like that, and then sometimes in the case of a revival, it's material that's set. So
Right.
you're more familiar with what it is. And in the case of the Kennedy Center, Jeffrey Finn, the producer down there, has been very generous to me, and he has allowed me to be a party in kind of suggesting titles. And Bye Bye Birdie, I had worked on the production of Bye Bye Birdie at Encores 20 years ago, and
Yeah.
so I kind of was familiar with it, and I especially was taken with the orchestrations, the original Robert Ginsler orchestrations, that are, I think, among the best of that golden age category. And so the opportunity to do it with a 22-piece orchestra down there, made that a really attractive
Sure.
option. And the Kennedy Center is just able to attract incredible casts, and because it's
Yeah.
short run, it's only 2 weeks of rehearsal, and then you go down there for a week of performances, and so it's easy to get the A team between other gigs to want to come and play in the sandbox and have fun
Right.
at Kennedy Center camp.
I love that. It's so true. The Kennedy Center, I mean, especially lately, it's been such a great kind of like factory in bringing these machines to Broadway, with
Yeah,
Spamalot, and they've been doing.
There's they're they've been able to get some really great titles.
Yeah.
to be able to do
Killing.
productions down there. And then and the Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra, I think, is the real secret weapon down there, because they are so
Unreal.
incredibly full of the A team of musicians, and you just don't get those outside of encores, certainly, but on Broadway, as pits get smaller and smaller, you don't have fewer opportunities to be able to have that kind of full orchestra experience
Totally.
of and putting them front and center and putting them on stage and allowing the music to be a critical part of the event, I think makes it
Yeah.
feel that much more special.
I love that. Well, I want to go back to kind of what you were saying earlier, because you mentioned this blank canvas, and then of course
Yeah,
revivals, and maybe it's like, I don't want to say it's easier to kind of, have that foundation or whatever. But
yeah,
obviously Gatsby is not a revival. But it did have that movie, and it did, like, it's a
sure.
well-known story. It's got the book.
Yeah,
You can
very. I
kind
mean,
of
it's a very well-known
fantasize it.
property, which
Yeah.
is, certainly a double-edged sword in
Yeah,
terms of
exactly.
something that's well known and has the audience comes in with expectations. They come in with the version
Sure.
that they would like it to be versus what and so that there's certainly that's true of revivals as well. I mean, certainly
Right.
there's a template, and right, in the case of Gatsby, there's a template of the other movies, and there's a template of the sort of movie version that everybody has reading the book in their heads.
Exactly. So, like, for preparation, right? Are you
Yeah.
reading books? Are you watching the movie? Are you kind of like, I kind of want to do it the way that I see it and not kind of take from what they have? Or do you find that balancing act? And that same goes with like your works and revivals, for Bye Bye Birdie. You
Yeah,
can kind of touch on
I
both of them
think I
if you
think
want.
there's a critical question to be asked at the beginning of the process, and that is, why now? Why are you doing it now? What is it about the process that's going to um, be connecting in some way with the audience that's going to come see it? And
Right.
and I think that in the case of Gatsby, when they started working on it in the pandemic, there was there was a feeling that the American society coming out of the Spanish flu in the 20s was very much parallel to this moment where there was all of this sort of pent up energy, and then they
Mm.
were ready to have this sort of bacchanal of the 20s, and the certainly the way that class in America has remained a central issue and a central problem, and essential something that America feels that it is above, and
Right.
but yet is baked in, and so uh, there's I think, without getting into too much of a detail about Gatsby specifically, um, I think the big question is a why now, and I think with respect to revivals, I think that's true as well. Is if there's a way that you can uh, make it feel like it can deliver the same story that the original creators were trying to achieve, but in a way
Mm.
that allows for a contemporary audience to experience it. And in the case of Bye Bye Birdie, there are certainly there's a script adaptation that was done by John Tollins and Rob Carey, to kind of take a little bit of the ick out of some of the lines that have not withstood the test of time so much,
Mm.
and to uh, and and golden age shows have a varying level of um, how much you need to kind of look at them again in a new way in order to make them feel like there's a reason why we're doing them now, and that's certainly
Totally.
what has been done with the most successful revivals of recent vintage.
Yeah, it's interesting with Gatsby. Seems like a lot of people are asking that "why now" question, because there seems to be a million productions of Gatsby, going on right
Well,
now.
I guess that the answer to that is why not?
Yeah.
Because we've got this our production, I guess, the GATS, the elevator repair service version of it, which is the complete unabridged version of Gatsby is coming to the public next season, and of course the one at ART as well. So it's exciting. I mean, when something goes into the public domain like this, it allows for different artists to be able to create their own version and to illuminate themes that they feel are most important. And in the case of our Gatsby, Kate Kerrigan from the very beginning was very interested in exploring the female characters and giving them some more depth and a reason to sing and something to be able to voice their circumstances and what they faced as women in the 20s. And so that's something that I think that she feels she felt from the very start was her way in. And so as a director, you're an interpretive artist, you're not a generative artist, so you're there to curate the experience that the audience has. But ultimately I am not as much of an auteur director where I'm specifically trying to put my stamp on it. I'm trying to usually use the script as the inspiration to try to depict that in the clearest fashion and in the way that is in tune with the author's intentions,
right?
And hopefully create something that is also beautiful and no pun intended, and that delivers something that an audience is glad they came to see.
Yeah, well, it's beautiful, and no pun intended again. It's so good. I got to see it on Friday, maybe Thursday.
Oh wow! So you got to see it again, because I know you came.
Oh my God!
You came to the first preview at Paper Mill.
Yes,
I know.
Very different show.
I think. Oh yeah, I know. We had we stopped for like 20 minutes in Act 2 or something.
No, actually, you got through all of it, but you
maybe it was the second preview that we had to stop.
Yeah, you could have stopped during the whole big chase sequence, and there was like a lot of tap dancing going on. Everyone was like, "I think this is where I'm supposed to go." It was great, and I saw you afterwards, and you were like, "We did it!" Like it was great.
Yeah, we hadn't made it through without stopping at that point.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I want to continue this, but one sec. I've got to. There seems to be someone who wants to say hello.
What in the world?
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
What is this party? Am I invited? On and on and on.
What is with it? On and on is following Marc Bruni.
On and on.
Funny you should mention On and On, because the opening number of Gatsby also ends in On and On. So apparently I only do music with On and On and On and On and On. Yeah, On and On. Well, we go on and on.
Now, is that in your contract? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, absolutely. I only do On and On opening numbers.
Got it. It's great. It's your thing.
I just saw it again. I saw Great Gatsby again, and I freaking loved it. I freaking love it. It's the first time I've gotten to see Jeremy Jordan swoon. Okay.
How about that? How does he do that? How does he do that every night? Every preview, I would sit in the back of the house, and he would start to sing for her, and I would just feel like this is it doesn't get better than this. Musical theater, a great singer, a great song, and that voice that just seems so effortless and seems to just soar in a way that is just thrilling. It's really.
Is it weird to say, like, I want him to sing me a lullaby before bed every night? Like, his voice is just so soothing. It's so soothing. It's so good.
He has an incredible. It's an incredible voice, but only to be topped by his acting. And in a rare turn of events, he also gets to do a little dancing in Gatsby, which I think was a surprise to many people.
I love his military dance. That was
my favorite line is
when
he says, "Today's the day."
Today's the day.
That is my favorite part. And he's like, "It's just like a few little flowers over here. It's not gonna be anything crazy." He's like,
"It's so good."
Meltdown.
That was something that was in Kate's book when one of the drafts of Gatsby early on, that was just a scene, and there were a couple of lines where he came across as just kind of neurotic and obsessed and a little bit unhinged. and Nathan and Jason said, you know what, this should be a song, and they wrote that song T, that sort of was around the idea of him and his anxiety prior to that that T. But that's a great example of something where the something in the book inspires a song.
Yeah.
Can I just say before I bounce out of here, because I just came to crash the party for 2 seconds, but I want to say hello, both of you guys. Miss you both so much.
Oh,
Hello, Eli.
We love you,
Alicia. Alicia, do you remember the day that we saw Diana Ross?
It is.
I mean, need I ask?
That was the day she passed away.
That
Her
was the
soul
day
left
I
her body
passed
that day.
That's the day you were deceased.
That
Yes.
was the day I was deceased, sitting in the back row and being like, I think I just want to get closer to the stage. And she's like, please
Right,
come on
and
the
then
stage.
You got
Only
and then you went on the
Felicia.
stage.
Yeah.
And then
And thank you
you
for
probably already
capturing
talked
that
about this on the podcast, but yeah, you went on the stage and then you essentially accepted a joint award where you took her hand and
then she was like, so how are you going to get off of my stage now? And I was like,
Someone lift me up. Carry me off the stage.
but before I go, I just want to say, Eli, I love you so much. I love you.
Love
I
you.
love you so, so much.
Thank
and I
you
was
for having on.
just thinking about when I made my Broadway debut, and I was like, he's not gonna be able to get into this bar. And you walked in, and everyone was like, Eli! I'm like, he's 14. How does everyone know him? And
he's the mayor of Broadway.
He's the freaking...
Absolutely not.
Yes, I think you might be.
I'll take it.
And Mark, I just want to congratulate you. The Great Gatsby is truly, it's so beautiful. It is.
Thanks,
so
Alicia.
I know you already said no pun intended, but it really is. The set is
incredible. Paul DePoo, the set designer, just won the Drama Desk Award last night for his set for Gatsby.
It is.
Yes.
The floor, the huge windows. It's just so, the music is, Jason freaking nailed the music. It is so romantic. The chemistry between Jeremy Jordan and Eva, I'm butchering her name, Nonblezada. It is just so incredible.
Not butchering it at all.
It's just such a swoon, and the dancing, the energy, it feels.
Dom Kelly, what a choreographer!
Everything. The tap dancing.
Tap dancing,
I was
real tap,
this.
like that is no joke tap dancing.
No joke. They are
all
phenomenal.
of it is just really well done, and I just want to say congratulations.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah,
Great to see
I
you.
mean, going off of that, everyone's been asking like what show to see, and this is even before I actually saw it on Broadway. This was like from my take in Paper Mill. It was like, it feels like Broadway. Like this is the definition of a Broadway show. It's big. It's like loud in like the best way possible, like not in like a shove it down your throat type of way.
It does feel like Broadway.
Yeah,
like
well,
it's like Some Like It Hot of the season.
We were really lucky to have a producer who was interested in providing the resources to be able to do something on a grand scale, and he wanted a Gatsby. He did not want the minimalist Gatsby, so we were able to have 18 musicians in the pit and to have a set that has many tracks of automation, and we have not spoiler alert, a car on stage. There's some and there's some pyro. These things, I feel like I feel like I will never get a show that is able to deliver this kind of spectacle in terms of. But I think that in the spectacle, these writers really did the work and had a strong vision for how they wanted to depict this story. And so I think that the flip side of that opulence and the sort of hollowness of the American dream that is at the heart of that, I think the intention was for that to also come through, that it is that is not missing that element of it as well.
Yeah, it's
Felicia, you got to go.
Yeah.
Bye,
Felicia.
Great
Thanks for hopping on.
You
Thanks,
too.
Felicia. Such a treat.
Oh
Oh,
my
that was
God,
such a
she's
nice
the best.
surprise.
Oh yes, I know. I love her. I was like, Mark's coming on the show, and she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, you want to like say hi? And she was like, yes. I was like, okay. Um, glad she was able to hop on. Well, I want to continue. Like you mentioned the car, the pyro, the all of the like all of these added elements that obviously the producers are willing to sign off and be like, okay, yeah, we'll do it. Um, does that kind of like does that kind of excite you and like make you just want to go even further, or does it make you be like, oh my God, we have all these things to figure out, like all these pieces to juggle?
Yeah,
Like,
well, I mean, in some ways, when you do that, it makes it easier because you, you go, well, how are we going to do the car? Well, we'll just have a car. So that makes it. Then you don't have
yeah,
to kind of figure it out. It's like, oh, we're just gonna have the car. Okay, great. And actually, the car in Gatsby was the thing that I was most worried about when we got to tech, and it ended up being the thing that I had to worry about the least because it just worked and it did everything it needed to do, and it kind of fit in the wing and made the turn, and the turning
unreal.
radius was great, and the things like that you worry about, being a tech nightmare, and that actually ended up being fine. But I think the stuff that I like is the sort of toy box of being able to have some fun things to fly in and track on and sort of play with
Yeah,
all of those elements.
the chandelier
Those are fun
and
because I love making transitions. Musicals are largely about transitions and about like trying.
oh no, Bernie. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Let's see if we can get him back here real quick. Oh no, it's okay. We appear to be having some technical difficulties at this second. We'll get him right back on here in a sec. Let's see if we bring him back. Oh, not yet. Um, I don't know if you can hear me still, but Mark, if you can hear me, why don't you try to refresh your browser? And we'll see how that works. Okay, I think he's refreshing. This has been a blast. Celicia, shout out to Celicia Thomas, Broadway Celicia Thomas, by the way. You could see her in Beautiful. She was in Trevor, which is obviously the Marc Bruni me connection, as well as obviously Beautiful, which Marc Bruni directed. And she was on the national tour, which is where she originally met Mark. And then she made her Broadway debut in Marc Bruni's Broadway directing debut. So very exciting that we were able to have both of them on here at the same time. Just to treat the two of them together. Oh, it looks like Marc Bruni's back. Hello. Oh wait, you're muted. Do you have an unmute
I'm
button?
I'm
There
not.
you
I'm
go.
unmuted. Wow. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what. Sorry, I was. I don't know what I was in the middle of, but
You're so good. I wanted to actually, because you mentioned you love transitions and like musicals are such a big part of the transitions.
yeah,
Or transitions are a big part of the musicals.
yeah,
There's a part of Great Gatsby that like gives me chills, and it happens twice. And you probably already know what I'm going to say because I mentioned the transitions. It's how you open and close the show the exact same way with a wonderful transition. And I'm not even going to like mention what's going on, but it's beautiful, and it's Gatsby looking off into the green light.
yeah.
Just so, is that something that you were right away as soon as you saw the scenic design that you were like, okay, I want to end it the same way? Is that something that's written in the
Yeah,
script?
that idea, it was not written in the script, and it was something that we were looking for a bookend and figuring out a way that we could thematically sort of start and finish in the same place. And also I think it was interesting because when we did it at Paper Mill, it started the same way, but of course Gatsby was revealed and then sang the opening number.
Right.
And so then when we revised the show in between Paper Mill and Broadway and made Nick Carraway more of the narrator and gave him the opening number, it was questionable whether, and there was some debate over whether we should keep the opening in the same way and be able to keep this bookend, and whether it would be appropriate to also, you know, it's a star entrance, people give him applause, and then he just disappears. And see, now I already did the spoiler, but
You're good.
But I also think it's fun to be able to do something that feels a little bit like a magic trick, and you know, directing's largely about surprise and trying to keep the surprises moving and keeping the rate of new ideas at a clip. And so in the case of Gatsby, I think it was about thematically starting and ending in the same place, and making the show, which is very much about asking the question of whether the reaching is enough, if the attainment is potentially not possible, whether you know, having tried, or having you know, what is the value in that. And so I think that was one of the interesting explorations that the writers wanted to bring to it, and that we thought we should bookend with the green light.
Yeah, I love it. And literally, like I mentioned, the first time it happened, like my jaw was like, "What? Like, how did that happen?"
Oh,
But
cool.
like, so
I'm glad
fun.
that worked for you.
Oh yeah, and then at the end, it ended the same way, and like, I started like crying. I was like, "That's beautiful," because it's just like, you know, this is the end of our story, you know, and we're gonna do it again tomorrow. It's the exact same way, you
Well,
know, type of thing.
it does to a certain extent speak to the timelessness of the story, and the way that
Yeah,
this 100-year-old novel has still captured the imagination of America. This novel that wasn't actually very successful the first time around, and only when it was distributed to the soldiers in World War II did it become you know, as popular. And so it's there are certainly lessons to be mined, or to be learned from looking at that story, and looking at the class
sure.
divide, and the way that America treats the haves and have-nots, and whether class mobility is possible. That
Fascinating. I'm
unfortunately
obsessed.
seems still very, very relevant, and very much of the moment.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think everybody can kind of relate to, um, you know, longing for someone or something, you know, and going to great lengths
Sure, and
to
wanting to
find that.
repeat the past, and to
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And so, like, it's fascinating the way that you guys did it and captured it is so beautiful. The way that you'll are performing it.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, it's so good. I'm obsessed. I have to ask though. So, like, and this is pun intended. So when you are like, you do finally get that green light, right? And you're going to Broadway, and after, of course, your paper mill run, how
Yeah.
early does your process run? Because I've always kind of looked at like directors as like an opening night is almost their closing night
Oh,
because
absolutely. It's the day of obsolescence. It's the day you go
yeah.
from being a pretty important person in the room to being totally not important at all.
Well, I mean, hey, that's
Yeah.
okay because it's still
No,
your
it's
thing.
yeah, no, I mean, you
It lives
obviously,
on.
you know, were instrumental in making all of these decisions, but in a sense, you're giving it over to the company because it's their show now, and they're the ones that are
Yeah.
having to tell the story every night, and hopefully you've created the scaffolding around it to be able to allow it to sustain itself, and to let them have the work in the bank that they can rely on every night, to be able to go out there and make it fresh, and make it feel like the first time, and to continue to tell the story with an understanding of what the underpinnings of it are, and the choices that were made, and that everybody can feel good about um, the thing that we're all making together, that we all made together, and now they're making on a nightly basis, and we're coming to see from time to time as the creative team.
Yeah. So like what is a director's run in a show? Like are you starting months before, years? I mean, obviously
Well,
you can't
yeah, I
start
mean,
for years, but
I mean, in terms of like pre-production on a show, like in the case of like Trevor or Gatsby, I mean, Gatsby well, I'll just say Gatsby because that's the most recent. But we started during
Yeah.
the pandemic. And then we had I think 3 readings and a workshop. So and periodically after each one of those, we met. We talked about what we liked, what we thought needed to be improved. The writers went off and they worked and worked and worked. And then there's a constant Google Doc that was being updated daily that I would chime in on, and they would chime in on, and we would go back and forth. And then we'd do another reading and then get another set of information that would then fuel the next rewrite. And they're very fast, so they just keep on working, and they would keep going. And then once you get the green light for a production, then suddenly you have to make all of these design decisions, and the design decisions need to be made months in advance. So the paint dries quickly on those because you kind of need to decide what the set looks like and what the costumes look like months ahead of being in even the first rehearsal. So you can't wait till you get into rehearsals to make all those decisions. So you kind of have to make those decisions essentially in a vacuum, or with in collaboration with your designers, certainly. But they're with a script that's a moving target. It's tricky because you need to make sure that you're designing something that is facile enough to be able to handle whatever the writers are going to come up with over the course of the next 3 months. Because although the script that you started with when you started the design process is one thing, it very much may change 3 months from now. And so you want to leave enough space to be able to and hopefully enough budget to be able to account for those things that need to be supported in the new writing.
Fascinating. It's just a whole juggling act. You should be you're like a professional juggler. There's
a lot of juggling, but it's a juggling and a little bit of
fascinating
personality management.
I love it all. And here you are, big Broadway director now.
Well,
and,
I still sort of pinch myself. It's really, I feel very, very lucky. I'm an extraordinarily privileged guy to be able to do something that I really love, and I don't ever lose track of that opportunity that I've been given, and so I try to create a warm environment for everybody that's associated with the things I work on.
No one does it better than you, truly. It's the environment.
Well, that's not true, but
comfortable. No,
but thanks.
It's so good. It's so good, and just being in the room with you, at one point in my career, it was such a gift and like something that I cherish forever. And like I said, like I've never learned.
Likewise,
more.
Eli, seriously, we shared a very, very special experience working on that show. And that initial, that was the first time that we'd really staged it. We'd done a bunch of readings of Trevor, but to figure it out for the first time on stage is a daunting and very special experience. And that you created the model that was very much relied upon as we continued to work on the show and ultimately, the off-Broadway production. Your DNA was very much on that show.
My greatest career achievement would be when I was in class and all of a sudden I get like a Facebook message from Marc Bruni. Hey, what do we do with the pill bottle? Like what, like you were like texting me like random things about like Trevor. And I was like, oh man, like 4 years ago, I think.
I know, you don't remember either.
I know. I'm like, I don't quite know. But it was great. Like it felt like I got to be a small part of it still because obviously that show means a lot to me. But it's so fun. Before we go, I do want to share a little slideshow of.
Oh my god!
Look at this. This is the first time we've met each other. This is Tech, just being in a room with you. Broadway's Josh Prince.
That.
Broadway's Marc Bruni. Just random being our Fierce Theater first show pep talk.
There's the Writers Theater swag.
Brutal. Yes, and then we had to go to a pool party. I had my swim.
Oh, nice. Oh my god. Eli, look at you.
Isn't this crazy?
Oh my god.
Jeff
the Jeff
Awards.
Oh my god, right.
And now here we
everybody
are
was in their
today.
finery. Yeah,
I know.
there was a big dance party afterwards at the. I
There was a
remember
big
in the
dance party.
lobby.
Yes. We had such a wonderful time in Glencoe, Illinois at the Writers Theater.
Yeah.
Obviously, a special group of people, and forever grateful for you and to have had the chance
Well,
to work with you and
that was
create something
that was a
special.
really special experience that will be totally unforgettable for me too. And I'm grateful to you for all you brought to the show, and to allowing for us to have a future for it. You know, I mean,
Oh my
that
gosh.
production really engendered a lot of interest in the material and in its viability as a musical, and it would never have happened in New York if that hadn't gone as well as it did, and a lot of that was due to your critical role and central performance in it. So,
Thank
bravo.
you, Mark. You're very sweet.
Take a
That
bow.
show, yeah, I mean, hey, you have so much to take a bow for. It's crazy. Obviously, double duty right now, so maybe we'll give you two. But I mean, we didn't even get to like half of your career. So, one day when life is a little less hectic, I'd love to have you back on and we'll chat some more. But Mark, this has
Sure.
been a dream. I appreciate you so much for coming on here with me and talking about
this is wonderful, Eli. This was really great.
everything.
I am actually on my way to having lunch with Josh Prince, so I will tell him hello.
No way! Oh my God. Stop. Tell him I say hello. Love you both so much. And yeah, best of luck moving forward. Obviously, everyone
Thanks.
go see Great Gatsby happening at the Broadway Theater. Yes, it's literally called the Broadway Theater. And everyone go check out Bye Bye Birdie if you're in DC.
I know, you got 7 more chances. It closes Sunday.
Oh my God, with some incredible people, by the way. Krysta Rodriguez, Christian
Borle,
Richard Kind,
Ephraim Sykes.
oh my God, the list goes on and on. Shout out Luke Manicus, who was a Pippin
Luke
boy
Manicus,
with me.
who was and was in Trevor. Was it Trevor?
Oh yes,
did a reading of Trevor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wait, that's so funny. Yeah, but great cast. Everyone definitely go check that out. And Mark, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. You have so
Thanks,
much
Eli.
to take a bow
Thanks,
for.
Eli.
Of
Oh, great.
course.
Thanks a lot, man.